All right, so we're on. This is Mobility and Inclusion. I am Harut Markarian, and our guest today is the athlete, the author of the book Don't Stop Dancing: My Story of Tragedy, Loss, Addiction, and Darkness, and the Discovery That Healed My Soul, Eric Anderson.
Thanks for having me, Harut.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time. We're going to talk a little bit about you today and about your journey. Eric has a wonderful story that I think is paramount for everyone to know about, whether it'll be a life lesson or just a challenge that you overcame. Right?
Yes, the ongoing challenge, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you were born in Minnesota, correct?
Correct.
And you grew up in Texas, Fort Worth.
Grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, and then spent some time in California, and then moved back to Texas. My dad's job took us around. We traveled because of his job, and then he eventually was laid off, and so we decided to return back to Minnesota, where all my family is.
Nice.
And that is where I currently reside.
Cool.
Unfortunately, in the cold.
Well, some of us are trying to get out of this heat, man.
Yeah, it seems.
um, so you played a lot of sports. I actually relate with you a lot. When I was reading your
Yes.
book,
Yeah, I did.
you mentioned soccer was your number one sport, correct?
It was. It was in Texas, it was soccer and football. And I was a little guy, so I got banged up on the football field. I was this was not the sport for me, so I switched to soccer. That was more of my liking. I was faster than everybody, so that was um, I excelled at soccer, and that's what I played mainly there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved back up to Minnesota though, and Minnesota was was a hockey state. And I remember getting on the ice for the first time with hockey skates, and it was like a baby deer on ice. I was slipping and sliding, falling all over the place. I just I couldn't do it. You really have to grow up if you're a hockey player. You just really have to start at a young age and play it all along. And you can't really come in and just slap on the skates when you're in seventh grade and start skating. So that didn't really go very well. So I, I concentrated then on basketball. I was really into basketball and golf and soccer mainly is what I played in high school.
That's cool, man. I myself, I'm a huge soccer fan. I play soccer a lot, and I was a professional basketball player at some point in my life. So
Yeah, that's cool.
when I was reading that part of the book, how you described how important it was for you, that athletic side of your life, I kind of resonated with it a lot. So you were also a little bit of a bully. I
I
read.
was, a little bit at first down in Texas. It was, I grew up down there. I was the popular kid, and what really changed is when I went to California. That was a real eye opener because I got out there. I had a really heavy Southern accent, and God, they made fun of me so bad out in California, and I was picked on so much, and the tables really turned, and it was just really an eye-opening experience. I really kind of just felt bad for how I treated other kids in school. And so I just remember when I returned back to Texas, you know I then I became the protector. I once you feel the other side of being bullied and stuff like that, it really kind of changes you. And then I always felt an obligation to stick up for the little guy and stuff. So, but yeah, it was California. It was different out there. People would even tell me that they just it's kind of the people in California were just a little different. And so when I had that really heavy Southern accent, and man, they just tormented me for it. And so I was always constantly on the defense and having to protect myself. So when I moved back out to Texas, I went to the same school that I left. So it was, it wasn't like I was the new kid. I reconnected with all my old friends that I grew up with, because I only spent about 2, 3 years out in California. So then I switched, and it really changed my attitude, and I really became, a big, protector of those, that were getting bullied and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the reason I kind of like stopped at this point when I was reading the book is because during my research and when I was writing the book, and I did a few other interviews like with people with disabilities, and a few of them mentioned that you know bullying is a real problem with kids with disabilities, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so that's why I was like interested when I read how you transitioned from being the bully to protecting the kids or who are being bullied. That was a wonderful story there. Um, and uh, I don't want to kind of like direct the conversation in a certain way, but I at one point I want to transition into how you hurt yourself and how did that transition into the new life that you had. But before that, you another story that caught my my eyes in the book. It took you apparently it took you a lot of time to get ready in the mornings.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I started, because I told you I was always a kind of a smaller, skinnier kid. And then after I graduated, I just wanted, I still was that kind of skinny kid. And I was like, I want to go start working out in the gym, and I, I, I hired this personal trainer. I didn't really know what I was doing. And he was just this really, he was the classic, the guy you see on TV, the motivational kind of does the infomercials for the exercise tool, really in your face, screaming, motivate you, kind of a guy. And but he taught me a lot, and I started working out, and it didn't take long. You dedicate, your time, and as long as you're consistent and you stay disciplined, really like within 6 months, I just really started to notice a change in my body. And I gained a lot of muscle. I caught a lot of, cut my fat down, and I got big, and, it just changed my whole mindset, my self-confidence. And then just every morning I get up in the morning, and I would just see these just gradual changes. And I just, even if I just go to the bathroom, doesn't matter what I was doing, getting ready in the morning, or if I just had to go to the bathroom, I'd be in the mirror flexing, just hours, just flexing and posing and stuff like that. But it really boosted my self confidence and made a big difference, in how I looked at myself. And so um, that it was literally that it was the summer I turned 21, and I turned 21 in January, and that whole summer it was like I still talk to my friends. It was the best summer, and the worst summer of my life. You turn 21, I had all the self-confidence. I was playing lots of sports, and I was just excelling at so many different things. And then one night we went, my friend had a party, and he had a house on a lake. And actually we had a softball game. I was playing in, different softball leagues with my friends, and we had a championship softball game. And after the game, we went to the bar, we had some drinks. And and at this age, even though it was a Monday night, we still always got together and hung out and had drinks. And when you're young like that, it didn't really matter much. I was able to get up in the morning still. I was, pretty just healthy, and I was in such good shape. I had a lot of energy. I didn't get sick, and really didn't get hungover. And so I went to this party on a Monday night, and I just it turned into a big party. It was just really strange how many people ended up being there. But when you're 21, a lot of us, we weren't all like you, Harut, getting our bachelor's and master's degrees and stuff like that. A lot of my friends, were just landscapers or unemployed or worked when they want to work. So we had a lot of time to do, what we wanted to do. And didn't really matter if it was a Monday or it was a Friday. We did a lot of partying back then. So it was a Monday night, and it turned into a big party. And then next thing I know, one of my friends runs in the house and says, everybody's going skinny dipping, and it was just like kind of out of a scene in a movie. Everybody just takes off out this big screen door and runs towards the lake, starts whipping out their clothes while they're running to the lake. And and I got to the edge of this retaining wall, and I stopped, and I was like, I don't know how cold the water is, I want to check and see. And so I kind of took off my clothes, and it was weird. Actually got into the water, and I was like, okay, the water's not too cold. And then I got back out of the water and then took off my clothes, and then I just dove in. And I didn't really even think about the depth of the water. When I stepped in the water, it only came up to my ankles. But I was drinking and just in this great mood, and you're just in this environment of having fun. You don't really think about repercussions, and you don't analyze your environment. You don't analyze your situation. You're just caught up in the moment. And I just dove. And what's interesting though is my sister and my dad were swimmers, and they always taught me that whenever you dive, to put your hands in front to protect your head. And I remember as soon as I dove, I remember that thought came through my head, and I did put my hands out in front of me to protect my head. But the water was so shallow that it didn't even matter, and I hit the bottom. And as soon as my neck broke, I never felt anything. There was no pain or anything. I was just lying there face down in the water, and I went to turn myself over and I couldn't move. And I had no idea why. It was really strange. All these thoughts started running through my head, like, why can't I move? Why can't I turn over? I'm like, am I that drunk where I can't move? And then I'm like, well, I've never been that drunk before where I couldn't move. And I'm just trying to process all these thoughts. And during this whole time, I'm literally drowning. It was so dark out, even though I had friends by me, nobody really could see me. And then it was, a good 1 or 2 minutes I was underneath water. And then I started to drown, and that's when I kind of started to get nervous. I was choking and starting to lose consciousness. And that's when I felt a hand on my face. Some girl that was standing on the shore saw me and started yelling because she saw me just lying there. And I felt my buddy's hand touch my face. And I remember I bit his finger as hard as I could to get his attention. And he flipped me over, and he was laughing, and he's like, what? He's like, what are you doing, man? Why are you just laying here? And I'm like, dude, something's wrong with me. I'm like, I can't move. And then from that moment on, it was just, it was pandemonium, everybody was kind of screaming and yelling. And I just remember all this echoing. And the one thing is, I had a friend that was going to school to be a paramedic. And it was weird that he was at that party that night because he was going to school. He wasn't a big partier. And, he took his studies, he was responsible. He took his studies serious. And I don't know why he was there that night, but he was in the water, and he came over to me, and it was like his training kicked in. He said, what's wrong? And I said, I dove into the water, man. I can't move anything. And then he instantly said, can you feel me touching you here? And I'm like, no. He's like, what about here? And I said, no. And he's like, are you feeling any tingling sensation in your arms and legs? And I'm like, yes. And then he immediately held my neck, and he says, we can't move him. Go call 911. And all my friends wanted to move me and lift me up on the shore. And he's like, no, we can't move him. So he stabilized my neck, and the doctors, they literally credited him. They said my injury probably would have been much worse if my friends would have moved me and lifted me on shore. So the fact that my buddy was there and stabilized my spine and wouldn't let anybody move me, the doctor said probably contributed a lot to lessening the degree of my injury. And they said how good of athletic, how good a shape I was in at the same time had a lot to do with it. So there were a couple things, you don't think of it at the time, but as time goes on, you start to count your blessings. So I was fortunate that my friend was there that night.
Absolutely, and I believe he was there for you. As I was reading the book and as you described all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, this guy was clearly there for Eric that night. It was an epic moment in the book, and I'm glad that you, after suffering through or going through that severe injury, you kind of like came back, right? Came back, and a lot of other people could have been at a much worse situation, right? You had a full-on explanation and details that you go through in your book that I want to encourage everyone to read. Your experience in the hospital with the nurses, with your friends, with other patients there. That was very well written. It was very detailed, and I don't want us to say everything here. I want to encourage people to actually go and read the book, because this is coming from someone who doesn't enjoy memoirs, right? And your book was very well written in a way that I was living every single sentence you put in that book. And this is crossed my heart. Like I'm not one who bullshits. So I really enjoyed reading a genuine experience. Right? That was amazing. So I'm gonna skip through all that hospital experience. I want to encourage people to read it. Now you got out of the hospital, came back, obviously. Now you broke your neck, you said, right? So what were the thoughts that were
Correct.
going through your head after you came home from the hospital?
But at first it was denial. It was really just, I was in a lot of denial that something like this could happen to me. When when you're you're living such a good life, a great life. I was very blessed. Um, and I had just, a lot of great friends, a lot of great family. Like I said, I was very athletic. I had so much going for me. And, when you're growing up, everybody, you have these, this picture of, what you want to do when you grow up or what you want to be. But one thing that never occurs to you is that you're going to end up in a bad accident and be paralyzed. So nobody thinks that something bad is going to happen to them like that. So initially when I got out of the hospital, it was just denial. um I couldn't believe that this was actually happening to me. So a lot of depression. But it was almost just, it was just shockingly surprising what happened to me, and the fact that I wasn't going to recover. The doctors were telling me, this is spinal cord injury. This is permanent. You're going to be in this wheelchair forever, and it's almost incomprehensible. Like your mind, you just can't wrap your mind around it, that your life has just been completely flipped upside down, and that you went from this, 21-year-old athletic kid that's got the world by the tail and unlimited potential, and he can do whatever he wants, and now he's trapped, in this wheelchair, almost like a prison, and the doctor just sentenced you to life in a wheelchair, and you just can't grasp it. And it took, when I got home there, I had to move back home with my parents, and there was just a lot of time of reflecting on my circumstances, what was happening to me in my body and stuff like that. And it was just, and you're in spinal shock. So your body is not really, your body's not made to live like that. So your body's just undergoing these so many changes. It's almost like like a metamorphosis of a sort. And you're just your mind is not your mind is not equipped to handle those emotions. I think I talk about it briefly in the book. How when you're in school, the police come out there with the drug program or the DARE program, and they teach you about drug and alcohol awareness and stuff like that. But I almost think that they should come out there and they should teach people or teach kids, about how if you do, stupid things and you can get into car accidents, and you hear about it in the news, texting and driving, drinking and driving, how many bad things happen to young people when they're just not thinking and stuff like that. I almost believe that they should like prepare kids, because I was mentally not prepared for the adjustment that I had to make physically and emotionally as to what happened to me. So it really, in the beginning, it was just a lot of denial and trying to come to terms that this really happened to me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When I was writing my book, I was doing research, and it turns out that only 13 to 17% of people with disabilities acquire their disabilities at birth. The overwhelming
How's it
majority,
that low?
yeah, the overwhelming majority acquire their disability later in life. Yeah.
And I do know one statistic is I think it's like 88% of those that get injured in spinal cord injury are males. And I'm like, and I asked the doctor, I'm like, why is that? And I remember some nurse quipped, and she said, because guys are dumb. She's like, you guys take stupid risks. And I'm like, good point. I couldn't argue with her on that one.
Yeah. So is that why this is we're going into the second portion of your book now? Do you title it, I think, The Day I Died, right? That's
Yes,
yeah.
that was that night when I had my accident. That's when the old Eric died, and kind of a new Eric was born. This
Yeah.
Eric with this major disability.
What did
Um,
you do with your car?
oh man, I love that car. It sat in my garage, sat in my parents' garage for about a year. Um, I didn't want to sell it, but I didn't know why I was keeping it. It was, I guess it was kind of like a reminder in a sense of how good things were. But then it started to become, it started to torment me in a way. So it almost felt like the last part of me that I had, that wasn't disabled. It was a reminder of the life I used to live. And so I finally just, I was never going to be able to drive the thing again. So I was like, I got to sell it. And I put an ad in the paper, and literally had numerous calls the next day. And then I sold it to a young kid, and that was a tough day to get rid of that car. But it was something, it was part of the process, the emotional process of letting go of that old life. So, but I did keep it for a while. It was tough to let go of, but I eventually sold it, and that was kind of like cutting ties. It was part of the grieving process, I would say.
Yeah. And I'm really interested in knowing what happened with Courtney.
It's interesting that you mentioned that.
uh,
So for a while, so once Facebook started up, I looked her up. I remembered her first and last name. I looked her up, never could find her. And gosh, it was interesting. So I literally am putting the final touches on my book. It's almost complete. I'm going through my revisions, and my editors really this is when she's talking about the scene versus summary. So I went back to that one chapter that night that I met her, and I changed the chapter. I was making revisions. I was really trying to um, like I said, write it in a way where the reader was there with me when I met her, when she walked in that club that night and I saw her. So I finished the chapter, and that was kind of pretty much the last thing that I really needed to do. Was the book was pretty well polished, and I got done. I was emotional. I was kind of crying a little bit, and I was just like, I'm gonna look her up again. And I typed her name in Facebook, and it popped up, and I see this picture, and I'm looking at her, and it's this blonde girl, and we're talking 20 years later, and I'm like, so I clicked on her link, and I knew she was from Bloomington, and she had some old pictures on there from when she was younger, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, that's her, I'm like, that's her, and then I just sat there, and I'm like, I don't know what I should do. I'm like, should I message her? Send her a message? I'm like, what's she gonna think? Is she gonna remember me? And I'm like, I'm just gonna send her a message. So I don't know if she was married, and that's why I couldn't find her in the past, and she got divorced then, and went back to her old name. But I sent her a message, and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, and I don't know if you're the right Courtney, but you ever remember dating this guy, and he was in a bad accident and ended up in a wheelchair? And she didn't, it doesn't look like she's very active on Facebook, but it was a couple days later, she got back to me, and sure enough, it was her. And she's like, oh my God, yes. And it turned out she was in a bad accident too. And I guess she had, like, no, she got sick. She some virus or something, and so she had some memory loss, but she remembered me, and it was kind of traumatic for her as well. So I told her I wrote a book, and once I published it, I sent her a link, and we had a couple conversations, but it kind of seemed like it was a little rough for her, a little traumatic for her too. So we haven't stayed in contact. So I'm not sure if she read the book or not, but we did reconnect, and we did touch base briefly and stuff. So she was glad to see that I was doing as well as I was, and that I made it through everything. And so we did reconnect, but it was kind of weird that I happened to find her that night that I rewrote that chapter of when I met her. So
That's amazing. That's you can't make this up, really. It's
no, it was kind of like when I wrote that book, a lot of afterwards, it was weird. A lot of stars aligned afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I believe that. Let's move on to your now you're in a wheelchair. You're starting your kind of like you're starting your life over, right? It's like there's a new Eric, and I remember you went to Vegas. That was your first trip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was your first trip, and again, a lot of good humor there. I'm going to encourage everyone to read it.
Yeah, that's when I don't even know if I want to tell that story because it is such a good story, but that I will say that's when I learned about spinal cord injuries and gravity. That's the best way to
Also,
describe that is when
yeah,
you
I was also going to say spinal
when you
cord.
learn about gravity's effect on the body.
Also, spinal cord injury does not dictate your um, sexual behavior.
Yeah, that was
That's somewhere
that's
in the
true.
book as well.
Yep.
Awesome.
I figured Vegas was a great place to kind of if there was any way to explore what I had in store for me or what I was capable of sexually, it was Vegas was the town to get the answers. That's what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's literally a phone book of
Uh,
answers for you in Vegas of what you're capable of
oh
sexually.
man, you gotta meet my friends. Uh, One is like Michael Gifford is in law enforcement. I think you two will get along very well. And the other one I want you to meet is Vince Tasco, who's been an advocate for people with disability for the longest time. He is a wheelchair user too, and he's been helping me through the book, throughout the what I'm trying to do with the company and all. So these two I really like it to meet. Um, yeah. So the reason I mentioned Vegas is because you went to visit the Hoover Dam, and you mentioned something that, you know, the viewing area was not accessible,
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't see it. That yeah, I was Vegas. We went to Vegas. It was with the PCA. My PCA. He wasn't 21, so we couldn't really do much in Vegas, and so that was a little disappointing. But before we left, he wanted to see the Hoover Dam, and I was like, yeah. I was like, it's you know, you know, one of the I always thought it was like one of the seventh wonders of the world or whatever. I was like, yeah, that would be great. Let's go. And we went out there, and I couldn't see it. The ledge, if you're in a wheelchair, I mean, I couldn't view it. There was no like, I mean, maybe there was a viewing area for people with disabilities. There could have been. I don't want to,
Yeah.
criticize whoever was, runs the Hoover Dam or the city of Nevada or state of Nevada or whatever. But we couldn't find anything, and where the viewing area was that everybody was looking, that's where we went, and I couldn't see it because it was too high. And I remember my PCA just got behind me, and he lifted me up, and I was kind of just dangling over, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, let me down now. And he put me back down, and I was just kind of disappointed. I was like, well, that kind of sucked, because it was amazing. I mean, it was just this massive infrastructure, and to think what was involved and the engineering involved in making that thing, for the few seconds that I looked at it, I was just amazed. And it was like, I would really like to look at this for a long time. And it was just kind of like another, shot to the heart. It was kind of another reminder of why being in a wheelchair sucked, is because I didn't get to see this thing like everybody else was getting to see it, and I was just really kind of disappointed that, everybody's just looking at this thing with their, eyes wide and their jaws on the ground. And my buddy lifted me up, and I saw it for 5 seconds, and then he let me down, and I was just like, let's go, man. I'm like, this sucks. So it was kind of like a disappointment,
Yeah.
and that's where I really liked your book, how you talk about that universal design. And because I know that could have been that if you can build the Hoover Dam, you could build it so everybody can enjoy the magnificence and looking at it. It's
Absolutely.
not hard. If you have the engineering skills to construct that thing, then you can easily build it where everybody can enjoy it and look at it. So that was the thing that I was kind of disappointed about. And that's what I really liked about your book, Harut, is how you talk about that universal design. And I really think that that's, how we should start looking at the world, because there's no doubt in my mind that we have the engineering and technological wherewithal to start designing everything in a universal manner.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. And to add on to that, I wanted you to know that I'm also applying for a biomedical engineering doctoral program right now. So if I get in, so hopefully I'll be, one step closer to making.
More
Uh,
schooling, Harut?
well, I don't look at it at schooling, man. It's just
More student loans?
No, this is
That's
most.
good. Okay.
I have tough student loans. I cannot take out anymore. So this would be a grant-based program. So I
Okay,
would,
that's cool.
yeah. So I wouldn't be paying for to get the education, but it's not just getting education. It's more like doing the research. So hopefully you can get to a result that you can deliver to. And for me, because I'm going to dovetail it under my company, Marquarian Robotics, that will be geared towards giving this community of people with disabilities another avenue of more independence, right? That's the ultimate goal of my entire company. um, and I thought because the institution has all these research facilities and stuff like that, so, what better way is there to test your hypotheses to see what's going to work and what's not going to work, and
Sure.
what can be delivered in an accelerated manner? Because the more research I do, the more I see like there are things that can be done right now, and there are things that can be done better to assist and give independence to people with disabilities, right? But it's not being done for some reason, and we're more focused on the long term, but the near term, we have problems that no one is really addressing, or no one is addressing it effectively, if I should say.
No, and I think a lot of that comes down to awareness. I really do. I just don't think people um, are, they're not aware, they're not educated in these type of situations. And I think that's why I liked your book, is because something like that, it just really brings awareness to a lot of problems that people just don't think about. But and I talk about it roughly. I talk about it briefly in my book. We live in an able-bodied world where most people are able-bodied, and these type of situations and these type of problems, it's just not something they think about. They have their own problems. They think about how they're going to pay the mortgage. They're getting their kids to and from school, and the programs that they're involved in. It's they don't think about these other issues and stuff. So I really think that it's an awareness issue.
Absolutely.
So I think but once you look at the big picture, it really starts making sense
Mhm.
that if you start developing and doing the like universal design, that it eventually, that this is all going to affect us at some point in our lives down the road.
Yep.
So we really need to be forward thinking. So that's why I loved your book, because it brings up that point that eventually, people are going to get older.
Yep.
So you might not be disabled now, but eventually you're going to get older and you're going to start running into these issues. So we should start looking at it now and creating a more accessible world, because eventually we're all going to be affected at some point.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, eventually, as you said, we're all getting old. But even if you're not getting old, let's remember that one statistic: 13 to 17% are born with disability. That's it.
Yeah.
The 83% of people, roughly 83% of people, acquire disability at some point in their lives, in their adult lives. So that's, these 2 points, the one that you made about the elderly and the statistics that I just talked about is very, I think, hits it home. Everybody should think about this. This is not something that can be put off, and it should be done right now.
No, exactly.
Um,
Yes. And it, especially if you look in America, what is it? I think, there's somewhere near 78 million baby boomers, so
yep.
this is, in America, we're going to have a lot of people that are getting old and are going to start, running into these issues. So I think it's something that we should start getting it, getting out ahead of the curve and start start thinking about these things. And it's just overall, it's going to make a world a better place. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also talk about it in my book in terms of making a great business sense to be more
yes,
inclusive.
yes, most definitely.
So let's talk about the mindset, your mindset, saying that, okay, this is my life now. I'm gonna make the best out of it. Take us through that.
Well, that took a while to get to that point, that's for sure. Um, there was a good 10 years of, um, you know, I was fortunate. I had a lot of great friends by me. They included me in everything they did. And, you know, when I was in the hospital, the nurses and the doctors, they really tried to prepare me for my friends leaving me, which does unfortunately happen to a lot of people with disabilities, that their friends don't come around no more. So my doctors were warning me of this, and it was really scary. But I was lucky. I had my friends that stuck by my side. So I didn't want to lose them. So I did put on a happy face. I did try to stay positive, but deep down inside, I really was hurting, and I wasn't really dealing with the depression and the mental health issues that I had in a proper manner. I was drowning them out with partying and doing drugs and just trying to have fun, and and I wasn't dealing with a lot of stuff that was going on internally. So it took a while um, for me to come to an acceptance that I was in this wheelchair, and even though I was paralyzed, life can still be good. And I don't want to ruin it, because there was that literally that point in that book. It was literally one night. It was almost like a literally turning point for me, where I rediscovered myself. And it was an awakening that I realized that, I could still live a happy life. Even though I didn't have my body, I had my mind. And the mind is a magnificent thing. I mean, if you have your brain, you can still accomplish a lot of things. And I realized that I could still be happy, that I could still do so many things, even though that I was in a wheelchair. I still had my brain, I still had my mind, and I still was capable of so many things. And once I started concentrating on what I could do and stopped concentrating on what I couldn't do, that's when I really had that turning point, and things started to change for me. And I really started looking at life in a whole different manner. And the accident, it makes you see life in a different way. You start thinking about things differently. It was very enlightening. I'm a very empathetic person now. That's why I have a great deal of respect for individuals like yourself. Somebody that's able-bodied. You said you did have some disability and family members and stuff like that. So, but for somebody like yourself to devote your time and effort to trying to help people like me, I admire that a great deal. Because we do need individuals like yourself, because there are a lot of people out there that I see that suffer, and they haven't quite reached that point, and discovered that they can still do a lot of great things and live a happy life. But I did luckily, fortunate me, I found that light at the end of the tunnel. And when I did, it was almost like almost another rebirth. It literally, like, my disability was like a metamorphosis. There were literally stages that I went through, and that I died, and then I was disabled, and then I went through this depression and denial, and then there was an acceptance and a rebirth again. And since then, I have been life did change for me in a way again, and now I'm living my life to the fullest again. So I'm kind of upset that it took me a long ways. It took me a long ways to reach that point, but life works in weird ways. I don't know. I
And
think I needed to go through that for some reason. If I
absolutely.
didn't, I wouldn't have had that book. I wouldn't have been able to write that book. I wouldn't have had all those experiences. So even though it took me a while to realize that I could still live a great life, I'm glad I went through all those dark times, because for some odd reason, I felt that that was my path.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree with you more. I think there's I don't think, I know and I believe that there's an incubation period for everything. So whatever you went through, you had to go through to be where you were at today. And you said something very powerful. The mind is magnificent, and that's very true. And once people are aware of the capabilities of the mind, their life would change 180 degrees.
Yeah.
Whether they're someone with a disability or not, it doesn't matter, because a lot of people without disability are acting like people with disabilities because they have a limited mind. And so
I think I read this once, and you probably can attest to this more than I could, but I think I read this once that they said that we know more about the universe than we do about the brain. That's how extraordinary our brains are. And that's how I kind of feel as I started, just was like, thank God that I didn't hit my head and do permanent brain damage. I started to look at it from that perspective, that I have my mind, and I can write, and I can tell stories, and I can listen to music, and I can see the beauty in the world, and I can talk to people, and I can laugh, and I can converse, and I can study, and I can take in information. The mind is a great thing. And so once I focused on that, that's when it really changed for me. And
absolutely.
That's what I'm still trying to do. So
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because as I was looking for doctoral programs to join, and I was very interested in the brain computer interface, right? Like for amputees, for people with the spinal cord injury, such as yourself. Like, if you have a healthy brain, how do you make your, let's say, prosthetic limb or your wheelchair part of your body, right? By your thoughts, since you can't move your feet, for example, right? How can how can you move your wheelchair to the place that you want to go, let's say, through your thoughts? And everything that I looked at, like researchers for decades and years, but we still don't really understand the mind.
no, it's crazy that they really, the how many trillions of connections the brain has. It's kind of just, when I read about it's mind blowing. It's like I can't even. It's almost, I can't even conceptualize. Our brains and how it works and what we can do. So.
So it can do a lot of things, and a lot of good things, if you use it right.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's true.
And so last question about what are you doing right now? How are you going around? What do you have to say to people who maybe are in your shoes right now?
Kind of just reiterating the same message that we just talked about. What I just finished my second book.
Congratulations.
Yes, now I'm kind of turning towards fiction. I like in your book how you talked about, there should be more inclusiveness in the entertainment industry, and I totally agree with you. And I loved how you included that in your book, because that's kind of where I'm trying to turn my talents now. So I wrote a second book. It's the first and what I hope to be a volume of 3 books, and it's fiction, but it's based off of real events that happened in my life. So my original manuscript of my book, it was like 190,000 words. I had to cut it down to 80,000 words. So I put in all these stories, because there are all these crazy stuff that I did over the years. And I put them in my book originally because I thought people would enjoy reading about all these crazy shenanigans that me and my friends got into. But ultimately, my book was too long. So I had to cut those stories out, but I kept them. And I was like, this is good material. I want to use this, for something. So that's what I'm using it now. Is I decided to write a fiction book, and I'm using these stories. And so it's loosely based off of my life and my friends. And I'm hoping to break into, the entertainment industry. I'd love to write a script and, about a show where the main character is, a guy in a wheelchair, because, these events and these things that I've gone through in my life, they're pretty funny and entertaining, and I think people would enjoy it. So I'm really trying to that's what I'm working on now. And fortunately I have the time right now with everything going on in the world. I spent a lot of time writing and stuff. So I finished the second book. It's off to the editor. So now I'm already working on the third aspect of it. So, and then I'm just now trying to take classes and read, and, I'm doing what you're doing now, is trying to learn more about the marketing aspect of it. Writing the book's the easy part. The marketing, that's the
Absolutely.
hard part. I didn't really do it the right way, I think, on my first book. So there's still a lot to learn, and that's what I'm learning now. Is I'm basically, so this second book, when I launch it, hopefully I'll, launch it the right way. But so I'm in that process, really trying to learn about the marketing aspect of it, because that's the hard part.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm not doing it. I'm not doing a good job at it either as of right now, just because I'm super, overwhelmed with a lot of things that I'm doing.
Yeah, sounds like you got a lot on your platter.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's all part of life. If I don't do these stuff, I feel like I'm not living. So I always challenge myself in different ways, and I enjoy that, actually, being in that state of mind, being in that distress, if you will.
Yeah, it's yeah, I try to keep myself busy and preoccupied. It's good to keep the brain stimulated.
Absolutely.
Idle time can be bad, especially during times like this. I mean, with the politics and the coronavirus, if you're disabled and you got a lot of downtime, that can be detrimental to your mental health.
Yeah.
You really need to try and keep your mind stimulated. Read, write, try and find something that you enjoy doing that brings you happiness. Technology, get on the computer, try and find something that you enjoy.
Yep.
Once you find something that makes you happy, then focus on it, and then just try to immerse yourself in it. And once you do that, your life will really start to change for the better. It's kind of what my buddy told me once. He said, you know, find something, find something that you love, and then figure out a way to make a living at it, and then you'll never have to work a day in your life. So that's kind of how I look at life now. So
Absolutely, absolutely. That's wonderful. By the way, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine. Her name is Eileen Gruba. I think I mentioned this to you before. She's
yeah,
an actress and the writer and the producer, I think. So maybe,
definitely. Yeah, I remember you brought her up, and I definitely want to take you up on your offer, because I'm starting to make progress with my book here, and I would definitely love her input on script writing, and how to break into that industry, because I definitely think I have the ability. I need to refine it, and then hone my skills. So
yeah, yeah,
I would love to meet her.
yeah,
And
absolutely. I
then
will link you
if
to
you
that.
ever need a guinea pig, Harut, on your company and your technologies and whatever you're developing, I would love to be a part of it, man, because
Absolutely,
I
man.
really think
Absolutely.
what you're
Thank you.
doing is great, and I trust you. Your book was very well written. You're very intelligent. I admire you, what you're doing a great deal. It's people
Appreciate it.
like, I get inspiration from people like you. So I just want to encourage you to keep going, and yeah, if you ever need to poke and prod anybody, I definitely would volunteer.
All right, man. That sounds great. I want to thank you for your time, man. This is kind of like our that was my last question, and hopefully we provided value to our listeners, to everyone who's gonna see this in the future. Which reminds me that I forgot to hit record on this thing, so which pisses me off. But it was live on Facebook, so we will use that.
Cool.
Um, I want to thank everyone who tuned in. I will see you next time with a different guest. Until then, know that there will only be just one of you. That is where it all starts, with you, a wonderful, unlimited human being.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on, Harut. It was great talking with you again. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and keep doing what you're doing, my friend. I really appreciate it. You're a magnificent human being.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time as well.
All right, take care,
All right.
Harut. We'll talk soon. All
Bye.
right, my friend.
Bye.